American Pie almost never happened. They were casting Home Depot employees and got turned down by 70 directors, yet the movie still made it to theaters. Once you see how the movie was actually made, it stops feeling intentional. It starts feeling like an accident that somehow worked. Because you've never seen a movie break every rule, from the writing of the script to who they cast, like American Pie. And we almost missed out on some of the most memorable performances because several of the film's stars originally said no. Everything about American Pie seemed like it was destined to fail. By the time American Pie was greenlit, raunchy teen comedies had been declared dead, with the last mainstream hit, Revenge of the Nerds, coming 15 years prior. The over-the-top sex comedies of the 70s and 80s, like Animal House and Porky's, had been replaced by a more family-friendly style of teen comedy, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and 10 Things I Hate About You. The idea of a movie about 4 high school students making a pact to lose their virginity by prom night felt like a concept that was 2 decades too late. But rookie screenwriter Adam Herz didn't see a dead genre, but instead an opportunity when he wrote the script originally titled Untitled Teenage Sex Comedy that can be made for under $10 million, which studio readers will likely hate, but I think you will love. Though the version of the screenplay I got my hands on had already been retitled East Great Falls High. This wasn't just his first screenplay, but it was written over a ski trip, sold for $650,000, and put a dead genre back on the map. It felt like the unthinkable was about to happen. We were going to get our first major raunchy teen comedy in 15 years, until the entire project almost collapsed. No one wanted to direct the movie. According to executive producer Craig Perry, he shuffled through a whopping 70 no's from directors before finally getting a yes. A script written in a dead genre by someone with literally 0 writing credits and no proven upside is the exact project that directors are trained to avoid. The director who finally did say yes was Paul Weitz. Someone who had literally never directed anything in his life before. Logistically, it made 0 sense for American Pie to get made from a business perspective. And when it looked like the risk couldn't get any worse, they cast the entire movie with nobodies. It's one thing to have a first-time writer or director, because unless they're Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino, no one outside of film buffs will know them by name. But it's a whole nother problem when the cast is made up of actors that no one knows. There were recognizable faces like Thomas Ian Nicholas from Rookie of the Year, Tara Reid for her bit role in The Big Lebowski, and Eugene Levy for his collaborations with Christopher Guest, but literally no one was a household name. It wasn't like Superbad when they could flaunt Jonah Hill and Seth Rogen as the selling point. For most of the cast, it wasn't just their biggest role ever, it was their first real shot. It was the first lead role ever for Jason Biggs, and by far the largest film role to date for Eddie K. Thomas, Allison Hannigan, and Shannon Elizabeth. But it gets even crazier, because it wasn't just the biggest film role to date for Seann William Scott, it was literally his first time ever acting in a movie. He went from 1 prior acting credit for a Sunny Delight commercial and struggling to make ends meet at Home Depot and California Pizza Kitchen, to completely stealing the show as Stifler in American Pie.
You guys are pathetic. I'm gonna find myself a little hottie. Suck me, beautiful!
But to make things even more insane, he was paid just $8,000 for the role, which was so little that he went straight from the American Pie set back to working minimum wage.
You only got $8,000?
I think so, because then I ended up having to work at the LA Zoo as a churro guy.
If you thought Scott's payday was the most surprising, you'd be wrong. Because Shannon Elizabeth, who went from being a complete unknown to an international sex symbol thanks to the film, only made a fraction of Scott's $8,000.
I think it was something like a couple thousand. I don't know. It wasn't a lot.
American Pie had already survived a dead genre, a first-time writer, and barely being able to find a director. But filling the cast with a bunch of nobodies was the kind of decision that makes studio executives write the movie off as dead on arrival. And despite having a cast of nobodies, the film still struggled to get these actors to sign on. Several of the cast members who would go on to forever cement their legacy in cinema history thanks to American Pie actually said no to the movie originally. Thomas Ian Nicholas, who had gone from child star with Rookie of the Year to struggling to stay relevant just 6 years later, didn't just say no to American Pie, but was genuinely disturbed that the script was even sent his way, saying, "I first thought it was a bit dirty, maybe something for the adult channels. So I sort of threw it in the trash and called my agent and said, don't send me this." Nicholas, however, would eventually reconsider, and the role of Kevin would no doubt be his career-defining role.
I'm coming! I'm coming!
But there was another star who was a bit more passionate in her distaste of the film, telling producers no a whopping 5 times.
I turned down that movie like 5 times out of sheer confusion. I had no idea what the movie was about, and I think that I was sort of morally against it.
That persistence didn't just make Jessica one of the film's unsung heroes, but also launched Natasha Lyonne's career. While Nicholas and Lyon were crucial to the success of the film, there was one role that the film simply could not afford to get wrong. Eugene Levy played Mr. Levinstein, aka Jim's dad, and was arguably the most iconic character.
Well, we'll just tell your mother that we ate it all.
But he too was adamantly opposed to the film.
Oh, I said no initially, yeah. I didn't want to do it. I didn't even like the part the way it was written, Jim's dad, because it was kind of written as a nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of thing with the dad trying to be friends, kind of a hip friend with his son. And I said, I don't want to play that.
Thankfully, they were able to change his mind because I genuinely can't imagine anyone else in his place. By the time American Pie was released, it survived more hurdles than almost any movie will ever have to face. But it still looked like a guarantee to flop at the box office. But what happened next, no one could have predicted. Because with literally everything working against it, American Pie would do the unthinkable. It would gross over 21 times its budget, raking in $235.5 million at the box office, and would go on to be the 12th highest grossing film in the world in 1999. It immediately sparked a sequel, and 2 more sequels down the road, plus an entire spin-off series that has gotten an entry as recent as this decade. But there were much larger implications, because it wasn't just these movies that exploded, but the careers of everyone involved. Remember the no-name cast? Well, they would all go on to have highly successful careers following the success of the movie. Namely Seann William Scott, who escaped the hell of living paycheck to paycheck to grossing billions at the box office. Even the producers Warren Zeid and Craig Perry went from no prior hits before American Pie to launching Final Destination, a franchise they're still producing to this day. But the success and influence the cast and crew got is only a fraction of the impact American Pie had on the industry as a whole. Hollywood didn't just notice American Pie, it scrambled to recreate it, flooding theaters with similar raunchy teen comedies like Dude, Where's My Car, Superbad, and Eurotrip. But the most important of them all was Road Trip, because it marked the directorial debut of Todd Phillips, the same guy behind The Hangover, Due Date, and The Joker. This was so uniquely important, not just because he went on to become debatably the greatest comedy movie director of all time, and likely never gets a shot if American Pie doesn't explode, but because Road Trip was so successful that he immediately got the opportunity to make Old School. And Judd Apatow, the producer behind Anchorman, Superbad, and The 40-Year-Old Virgin, among countless others, said his empire never begins if it weren't for the success of Old School.
And Will Ferrell was in Old School. Yeah. And that opened the floodgates, and that made them want to make Anchorman. And then because that did well, they allowed us to do The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
And literally none of this happens if American Pie didn't pull off the unthinkable. American Pie wasn't just a movie that beat impossible odds. It accidentally rewrote the rules for comedy and shaped the entire genre for the next decade and beyond. And if you love this style of comedy, you probably notice how it's completely vanished over the past decade. But there's one person who has the power to bring it all back. He's the same person who launched the careers of Will Ferrell, Vince Vaughn, and Zach Galifianakis. He did it once before, and you'll see exactly how he can bring back comedy movies again here.